Hey everybody, Star 6 Wars 1 here, and welcome to the next movie of Anime Movie Month 2, and also a look back at a film that I previously reviewed in the previous Anime Movie Month, Akira. Now, back in my old review, I was very confused by the film, and really didn't have a completely solid opinion of it. I admit, looking back at the review itself, it's not the most greatest, but you know what? It was my second review. I really didn't have a standard formula at the time. But I'll admit that some of my opinions of it still stand, but we'll get to that later on. Let's start off with, first on the look back, the story. Okay, I'm going to come out and say this right now. I know this is an anime classic and everything. I find the story is actually the weakest element of Akira. Now don't get me wrong, the story is good. It's really good and has aged decently well. But I have two little niches with the story. It's really confusing, and even that's an understatement. I find the film very hard to follow at times because everything is just going on at once, and the pacing is so fast that I can't sometimes tell what the hell's going on. Though, admittedly, I think multiple watch-throughs can solve that. And it's unlike Unlimited Blade Works, the pacing's done well enough that you could probably get it. Anything you missed in the first watch-through can be done in a second. But there is another problem with the story that I don't know if it is addressed. It's messages. There's a lot of messages of power and its misuse and corruption of the government, and I think something about youths and being all of them delinquents. A lot of stuff at the time. And I'm sorry, a lot of its messages at times feel very, very forced. Not all of them, mind you. And I just think it's just a little pretentious. Not enough to ruin the film, but something of a problem I personally had with it during this watch, where it's like, yes, we get it, now move on, kind of thing. Sorry, but and I do think, though, the story is good enough to hold it over, though. Pretentious messages and confusion aside. Next up, the characters. This was actually something I did mention back in my old review, how I mentioned the characters were assholes. To an extent, I still agree with that. Most of the characters are assholes. Or really, really unlikable at times. Not hateable, though. There's just that little bit there to make them likable or relatable enough that you don't hate the characters. Though I want to point this out, Akira, for me, borderlines that edge of unlikability. And I think, had they made the characters totally unlikable, it would have ruined the film. Quite honestly. And I think there are a few moments where it came really, really close. But not enough to ruin the film. Just enough to be like, okay, this is kind of not something I like, but we'll go with it. But I will say there's enough likability in the characters, or at least relatability, to make them come off as not total assholes, but at least something that you can enjoy just enough. And you feel sad when a character dies. Next up, the animation. Okay, yes, I want to say this right now. The animation is aged. It looks at times like it's from the 80s. And aside from some of the aging issues with it, and I do think there are some moments where it's aged pretty poorly, I think for the most part, the animation's aged decently well. Up there with Ghost in the Shell and Cowboy Bebop in terms of age. But that's besides the point. Next up is something I forgot to mention in the old review, the music. Which, give this movie credit, the music is simple, instrumental stuff, but really good. Kind of like Trigun in that way. And my two favorite tracks are titled Kaneda and Tetsuo. Those are awesome tracks, and I like both of them. And the music itself in the film is decent enough and holds the atmosphere to it really well. Especially the confusing moments. God, those are confusing. And to mention this right now, there are two dubs. I've never seen the 1988 dub. I always watch the 2001 dub because, honestly, it's better. Everyone I think that's watched the 88 dub can mostly agree with that, from what I've heard. I cannot say anything about it. I recommend the dub, though it's going to be a little on the Kaneda Tetsuo side, but you know what? It's likable enough. I like the dub. Overall, my opinions of the film have definitely lightened, heaviened, I don't know what to say. I can honestly say at least I have a more solid opinion of the film, but at the same time, that might not necessarily be a good thing. As I said before, I find the story the weakest part of the film. But then again, I will say this right now, it's an anime classic. And I agree with what I said before, you kind of have to see this film. And I recommend it, but I also recommend something else. Don't go in with hype. What ruined the film for me a little bit in my first watch through was the hype. I thought I would enjoy the show greatly. I thought it would be an amazing experience. I didn't enjoy it the first time through. But the second time through, I didn't go in with hype. I thought I would hate the film, and I thought I'd get pretentious. Well, it was true at least on one of those counts. I enjoyed the film a hell of a lot more the second time through than I did the first. And I actually wanted to follow the story. I wanted to follow the characters. I wanted to see what happened. Which was more than I could say with the first time when I just got bored. I could potentially raise this to my growth as an anime fan, but at the same time, I just think it was honestly more enjoyable the second time through. So my advice is, don't go in with hype, and you'll be fine. I give Akira an 8 out of 10. Now you're probably thinking, why am I giving this a higher score than before, but still a lower score than some? I don't think it's the masterpiece people make it out to be, and I think if you go in with hype, you will probably not like this film. Regardless though, I do recommend you watch it at least once. Anyways, that's all from me. This has been Star 6 Wars 1, and I'll see you guys next time.